Right, welcome to Stereo Psychology. Don't know, this could be a quick one today. I'm potentially waiting on a meeting, but we'll see how we go. I'm Stephen Downey. I'm a clinical psychologist from Australia. I like to do breakdowns on Reddit threads, and I think I'm going back to the old Reddit, doing whatever the top one is, because I feel like I like being under the pump rather than selecting something. Just choosing whatever the heck's on the top and riff off it. And like, if it's a double up, it's a double up. I'm sure you won't die. So we'll do what we normally do. Like if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more like this. I'll be doing them on my work days, and so that'll usually tend to be sort of 3 in a row, and then a break over the weekend. So, um, all right. Without further ado, we shall rip into it. So this is the top one that isn't an update. Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit my sister's kids for free because she said stay-at-home mums don't work? I, 30 female, am a stay-at-home mum to 2 young kids. My sister, 28-year-old female, has 3 children and works a full-time job. Recently, she asked if I could babysit her kids every day after school until she gets off work. I told her I'd be happy to help, but that I'd need some compensation since it would be a significant addition to my daily responsibilities. She exploded, saying that since I don't work and just stay home all day, I shouldn't need to be paid for it. I was floored by her comment. Staying at home with 2 kids is a full-time job in itself, and adding 3 more kids to the mix is no small task. I tried to explain this to her, but she accused me of being selfish and not supporting family. Our parents have taken her side, saying I should be more accommodating because she's working hard to support her family. Now I'm being painted as the villain for expecting some form of compensation for the extra work. Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit my sister's kids for free because she doesn't see my role as a stay-at-home mum as real work? Okay. I think there's at least a simple part to this, which is actually answering the question, which is, in what entitled world does somebody get to dictate to you what your responsibilities are and should be based on their subjective opinion of your workload? That's crazy. No. I don't think anybody should be able to look at any mum and say they don't work and just stay at home all day. I think that raising the next generation should probably be considered a somewhat more important task than what it is today. And the fact that some families are willing to consider that a full-time role and essentially forego the extra benefits that come from having multiple partners working, I think is generally good for society. And I think, I think that it's something that when I see this response from the sister, I actually see that a fair bit, not just in this, but I kind of want to stick to this where the role of a mother is so denigrated to the extent where a woman that decides to look after her children full time is essentially considered lazy. Where would I sit on this? So I believe, my personal belief is that taking care of children is a full-time job. And I say that from the perspective of I work with the stressed out mothers that try to do more than that, often successfully, but they essentially pay for it with their own very limited time with their own children. Very often they feel quite guilty about that, and they carry a heavy emotional load for the, like, I guess, because they are unable to put in the time that they feel is important with their kids, they often sort of view that quite negatively about themselves. But yeah, also just trying to get the work done. Certainly, I think there's a difference here between the real world and then what people view as being the real world that's probably worth mentioning. I think that when we look at this, generally speaking, women have added their work on top of the role that they already had in terms of taking care of the house and taking care of the kids. That's certainly in Australia the most common model. And so the men are working roughly the same amount they always have in terms of doing their job, but men haven't necessarily stepped up in terms of doing more of the home-related tasks, which is a cultural phenomenon. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that is the real world at this point in time. And so very often the women in question are essentially adding a job onto their other responsibilities without there being anything that gives to account for that. And so very often they're in the extremely stressed out position of trying to hold what I would consider to be 2 full-time jobs together. And it makes just a little bit of sense of the explosion that happens here, because this person is basically going, like, can't you see the amount of stress that I'm under here? And you could just help out a little bit to alleviate that. And I think that inherent is that in that comment is the idea that, well, because you're suffering less than me, you owe me something, right? Could be wrong about that. That might not be a charitable reading, but it's this idea of, compared to me, you don't do as much, and therefore I know you have more capacity. And this is actually a common opinion that I see in people who are quite psychologically unhealthy, and they come in to see me, and I spend most of my time trying to show them the impacts of stress on their life so that they could take it seriously and change something. You know, this is something I take very seriously for myself. I work in terms of my in-client work with people. I work 3 days a week. Yes, it would be nice to have the extra money and things that come from working more than that. I just can't do it. It pretty much destroys me to work more than I am able to, and so therefore I cut it back. And that's something which I take seriously in my own life. You know, I feel like other people should as well. This reminds me of the situation we were looking at kind of recently, to where we were talking about having two partners both doing 60-hour weeks. And, you know, we're looking at him not stepping up. And it's like, oh, hang on just a second. This whole situation is unhealthy. How about we take a step back and go, is this worth it? If I get to my goals, was it worth what it cost me to get there? And very often, at least from where I sit as a psychologist, I would say the answer is no. You know, so I look at this thing here. Now, there are things that I don't know about this. What don't I know? It could be that her sister is a single mum, right? And that she actually does have to work a full-time job, and that she doesn't have anything left over, and what she needs is an act of charity. At which point you go to your sister and you ask for an act of charity without a sense of entitlement, and you actually own that that's the situation that you need. I'm guessing that it is not the case, like that is not the case, given her response. You know, in terms of the sister that we're talking about doesn't seem to view the other sister as like being unable to pay for her being able to look after her kids. And the way that the sister who wants the babysitting to happen responds, in that you don't work, you just stay at home all day. There's a part of me that sort of goes, if they're a single mum of 3 children, it would be difficult to hold the opinion that you just sit around all day, because I would think that you would be acutely aware of the fact that your children require a huge amount of time and you have to work on top as a non-negotiable. And you probably wish that you didn't have to have both of those loads solely resting on you. So that's my reading of the situation, but I could be wrong. If it was the case that, you know, the 28-year-old with 3 children is a single mum, that might change things slightly for me in terms of the conversation that I would have with the original person, to just sort of say, is this in line with your values? Is this something that you might regret later? Is it the money that's important? Is it the principle of the matter that's important? I'd be wanting to explore those things, just because this looks to be like it's turning into a family-wide drama. And we've got to think about, you know, as long as you're acting in line with your values, you're going to be fine, right? You're going to be on the other side of this issue going, yep, I acted in line with my values. It's just about making sure that you did, because it's rough to be on the other side of these situations, realizing that you did not, in fact, stay in line with your own values. You know, so I think that's sort of where I would take things from. I generally believe that people in the Western world are far too busy. They do not understand properly what our bodies and brains are meant to work with, and they are working far too much, and they're creating a culture where we look down on people who are working within their tolerance, in a way that I just don't think is healthy or sustainable over time. You know, I believe that it is probably contributing to what I see as coming up as some of the more underparented children who really needed a bit more guidance and input, but the parents were too burnt out and genuinely too busy to notice. And so because their children were sort of struggling but doing okay, their children have sort of been held back and not given the opportunity to actually thrive. But because everybody in the household is just getting by, it's like, well, if the kids are just getting by, that's par for the course. And I wonder if we'll see that as being a bit more of an issue over time. We'll finish up there. I think that's a fairly straightforward one for today. I don't know that I've got a lot more to say. I think, yeah, we certainly are undervaluing some work roles. And if you need help from somebody, it's just not helpful to come through and act entitled and create family drama when you don't get it. Like, this person is not more likely to help you now that you've gone and essentially punished them for not. That doesn't seem to have worked particularly well there. So let's finish up there. Have a good day, all that kind of thing, and I shall catch you in the future. All right, see you.